Hello, and welcome to the next in the series of virtual trainings offered to you by the Smithville Area Chamber of Commerce in partnership with the Smithville Public Library, as well as our generous funding sponsors, which includes the Texas State Library Association and Archive System, as well as the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Today, we're very excited to have Sarah O'Brien back teaching the class for us. And I'll let Sarah introduce herself. Before I do that, I just want to remind you that this class will be available on the Chamber's website at smithvilletx.org and as well on our Facebook page at Smithville Area Chamber of Commerce and the Smithville Public Library's Facebook page as well. With that, I am going to turn it over to Sarah. Sarah, go ahead.
Well, thank you so much, April. I'm excited to be here again. I think this is one of the funnest courses I teach. So I've worked in local government and downtown revitalization for many years. My grandmother and her twin sister were antique dealers and retailers. And my part-time hobby is spending time out in Round Top doing displays for folks. So a lot of fun we're going to have today, and excited that you guys are tuned in and watching. Just kind of go over what we're going to learn today. We're going to talk about just kind of basic retail merchandising, get into a little bit of the psychology of the human mind that affects how we design our retail stores, talk a lot about color. Y'all can tell I love color, layouts, impulse buys, signs, groupings, experiences, and how to engage with all the shoppers' senses to really have maximum impact. So no matter what industry you're in, whether you're a brick and mortar retailer or a restaurant or even your insurance business, look and design and feel is an important tool that can help you hook customers with a great first impression. And that also gives you an edge over your competitors and helps you stand out amongst the thousands of retailers and competitors out there that probably have very similar business models than you. That's why you guys are all here, right? To learn a couple things to set your business apart. I love this quote by Michael Battler. It just really, I think, speaks to what we're going to talk about today and why you guys are here. I always like to start with the why before we get into the tips and tricks. And so today's consumer market is crazy. We are August 4th, 2021. For those of you that are watching this in a long time, or my screen would be helpful. Thank you. Hold on just a second. There we go. Now you guys can see my slides. I'm going to go back and let you guys see Mr. Battler's quote really quick since I skipped over it. But this is the quote I was talking about. I think it's very powerful and it just speaks to why we're here. So today's retail landscape and today's consumer landscape, it's instant gratification. It's constantly changing. It's really dynamic. Success is more than just having your product available or having your shelves fully stocked. Customers want experiences. They want them right now and they want them delivered to their door, right? Makes it tough for us in the retail business, but store design and experience design, even if that's on your online store, is a key element that can help you put your business above the competition. And so it's always important, I believe, to remember that retail store design can help you not only draw customers into your stores, but also create an engaging environment that will hopefully make them be more inclined to spend money while they're there, and of course, makes them feel welcome and excited to come back and see you again. So before we get into just the specific examples, I just want to hit on the basics. You guys know the immediate impact of good versus bad visual design, even if you never heard of retail merchandising before today. You have memories and experiences in stores and in places that you enjoyed being, that were aesthetically pleasing, that compelled you in some form or manner. We also have those that were bad experiences. Stores or shops that you may go in that have odors or are messy. Those are things that our human mind does not let us forget easily. We keep remembering those. And every human being's on average, the attention span is 8 seconds. And so I like to say that you have 8 seconds to grab their attention. That's it. That's not very long, right? That's how little of a time you have to make an impression. Stores and chains and brands that do this well know that the best retail displays and the best design techniques do more than just catch the eye, though. They entice you to make that purchase, which I think is the most important thing, and why you guys are tuned in today. So we're all tired. We know that. And I bet everybody's just, Sarah, tell me one thing. What is the one thing I can do in my store, in my place of business, visually to give me the best ROI? And I'm sorry, because I know we're tired and I wish I could cut to the chase and give you just one thing. But any experienced retailer will tell you it's never just one thing. It's how well it's all executed together. It's who your customer is and what their needs are and how you cater to those. And so the first thing we have to do is really understand the human mind, our customer's mind. We're going to take a little psychology course briefly. I'm not a psychologist, my sister is, but these are just all well-known facts you could probably find on Google. But 73% of purchasing decisions are made in store. And so that means that they may think they know what they want, but they don't really know until they get there and they look. The potential customers make a subconscious judgment, whether they know it or not. And this one was within 90 seconds of entering the store. And so the first 8 seconds is our first impression. It's formed, right? But then you have about a minute and a half for the subconscious to decide something else, right? And so you can't just stop with that first 8 seconds getting their attention. We have to pay attention to the first several minutes to really make an impact. 62 to 90% of impressions are based on color. Do you guys know that? I found that interesting. 52% of shoppers don't return to a store if they don't like the aesthetics or it doesn't make them feel comfortable. And 93% of purchases are based on visual appearance, which I think is tremendous. That is huge. Oh, I don't know what happened to my screen. I don't know if y'all saw it or not, but I apologize. Color advertisements, when we're placing ads or in marketing materials, are seen 42% more times or 42% more likely to be noticed than just plain black and white. So that goes back to the psychology of color that we're going to talk about. And I could talk about color for 2 hours. This is a 50-minute presentation, so we're going to keep rolling through here quickly. But color, I guess, if I had to pick just one thing for you to do, would be the one thing I would want you to focus on initially. Our brains, the human mind, is hot-wired to respond to colors, and it does so differently. Sure, based on our culture, our history, our location, how we grew up, what our demographic is, are we young, old, we may have a little bit different reactions to certain colors, but overall, generally speaking, the human mind reacts very similarly to all colors. And so you have to understand that in order to use it right and to make sure you're using it in a way that it influences buying decisions at your place. A great deal of purchases are made visually, like we said, right? 93% or something. And visual appearance is based above any other factor during a shopping spree is color. 85% of respondents to a recent survey thought that color was the main reason to buy a particular product. Isn't that interesting? I don't know anybody that's ever shopped online before, and I try not to shop on Amazon, but it always surprises me when the colored item, if it's a fan I'm buying, right? And there's white and gray, and then there's a red or blue. That colored item you will see sometimes is priced higher. Why is that? Because it's in more demand. Because people like color. They respond better to it. Smells and sounds are about 1% of those decisions, unless it's a negative one. If it's a negative smell or a loud, obtrusive sound, I think that number goes the other direction quite a bit. Textures is important as well. And of course, brand recognition. All of those play into it, but it's really linked to the color scheme. And colors also are one of the main ways that we recognize brands these days, right? So each color stands for a different emotion or feeling, and sometimes more than one. And so it's not universal. As I said, it varies by culture, by age group, by demographic. But generally speaking, let's say the color red is emergency, urgency, energy, right? Sales is a good red color. You guys know that. Black is connected to luxury brands, powerful products. Yellow grabs your attention immediately and makes you think of bright, sunny days. And so all of those are kind of general feelings and emotions that are elicited when we see color and when our human mind reacts to that color. Red, black, and blue are generally linked to impulse shopping. Isn't that interesting? And so fast food chains and outlet malls, you'll see those colors there a lot. Soft colors like pale pinks and light blues attract traditional buyers. And even online shopping has a new whole scientific, psychologically based color, I guess, techniques and recommendations that you're supposed to use because it's different than in person, right? The color is important, but it's also buzzwords and convenience effects for shopping behaviors when we're online. But color is still very, very important, especially when you talk about contrast and visibility, because we are actually reading, right, or consuming everything with our eyes when we're shopping online, right? We're typically not using our other senses. And so it's very important with your online store to pay attention to the design and the layout and the color and the contrast. And we won't go into contrasting colors, but I could talk, the different hues of different colors mean different things. And when you place different colors together, the way they react together or form a particular feeling together is also all part of it. And so if you're interested in color, we can get together over happy hour or lunch and talk about it for days because I just love it. And I'm not done with color just yet. So I do want to go over just a couple. I picked just a few typical colors that you generally see in retailers. Target, red, right? I mean, Target is red. You can't think of Target without imagining that red bullseye. When you go in the stores, everything is red. Red grabs attention. It increases our heart rates and prompts quick decision making. So that's why we can't get out of Target for less than $40, right? Because it wants us to make these decisions quick. And so it is designed, the store and the color layout, to make us do that. Red is typically the most preferred color for packaging and signage for sales and price decreases because it's a look at me type effect that red provides us as humans when we're reading it. Red also reduces analytical thinking, which I think is also why we don't pay attention to our pocketbooks when we're in Target typically, or at least that's just me. And so that's more impulse buying. Pink. Victoria's Secret is pink. It always has been, right? When you go in there, every store, sign, bag. Pink traditionally evokes happiness, it's lightheartedness, but it also is connected to romance and calm. That's why Pepto-Bismol is pink. It has nothing to do with the makeup of the medicine, right? The color itself is enough to start soothing a stomach ache. Seriously, I'm not kidding. They did it like that on purpose. And the soothing effect can also be taken to way extreme ends of the spectrum, right? Sports teams are known to have painted their guest locker rooms pink to kind of drain the opposing team's energy to make them more calm and relaxed. And then pink, of course, has been the de facto color for girls for generations. That started after World War II. And it's used for gifts for women and all kinds of stereotypes and gender roles that have been assigned. But it makes shoppers want to buy presents for their girlfriends because of its history, whether that is a history that will continue in our society or not. But it is what is associated with that. And so Victoria's Secret was smart to use it in their branding. Orange is one of my favorite colors, and orange makes people happy. Think about Clinique, right? It's the color of energy and enthusiasm, which is probably why I like it so much. I've been told I have a lot of energy. It has a positive effect. Orange Theory workout chain uses orange, and several other chains in that or physical health space use orange because it's well suited for that type of thing because it's energy and positivity and motivation. And so I liked it here with the pink, the Dunkin' Donuts, because it's trying to, I think the way that they contrast with each other is good because you've got the energetic and then you've got the calming. And so don't get stressed out. Come in, get a coffee. If you don't have that energy, if you're feeling pink, because we've got the orange and we're going to give it to you. And so I think it attracts everyone. And so I just love colors, and I could go on and on. I'm going to tell you a couple more and then we'll be done. I put blue, yellow, and green here all together for a reason. Blue typically inspires security and trust, which is why a lot of banks use blue, and a sense of calm. It's reminiscent of the sky and the ocean, and so a lot of people are drawn to the water or to the sky. And depending on where you are and what shade and hue of blue will determine what type of impact it may have on your shoppers. Light blues are relaxing, calming. Bright blues can be energizing. Dark blues like navy are great for corporate sites and designs where strength and reliability are important. Yellow is also linked to happiness, just like orange, and cheerfulness. But softer yellows are generally used as a gender neutral color. Light yellows give a more calm feeling of happiness than bright yellows. Take away that energy and it's more relaxing and smooth. And dark yellows and gold hued yellows often make us think of antiques or old world or royalty type of thing, right? And so that really links to the way that yellow evokes a sense of permanence in our human mind. And green similarly has some same calming attributes that blue has, but it actually incorporates some of the energy of yellow. And so green can have a balancing and harmonizing effect on shoppers and consumers. And so anytime you're trying to portray wealth or stability, renewal or nature, brighter greens are your way to go. Olive greens are sort of more representative of the natural world. And so I like the blue, green, and yellow color schemes together for a lot of different reasons. And finally, black. Black is strength, authority, classiness, and great for electronic retailers. You see that all the time, cell phones, computers, and also for men's clothing. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that. But it's that general impression of strength and authority that is felt when we see black, and kind of, I guess, refinement. Okay, so that was a lot about color. Now we're going to talk a little bit about layout. Really a lot about layout, but retail store layouts are things that to classify them as good, I guess, to have a good retail store layout, I would say that means you're have a great customer experience and you're generating revenue. And when you marry those two together through a good retail store layout, you're winning, right? Because your pocketbook's winning, your customers are happy. There's really no losing there. And oftentimes we forget about that experience. We're all busy, small business owners, retailers, stores. We are so focused on our bottom line that we often forget the customer experience. In corporate America, you see this all the time. The customer experience actually suffers because we're trying to cut costs or decrease staffing. And so we have to really try to balance those two, especially in the way that our retail stores are laid out. The interior design of a store is 100%, if it's not right now, it should be in your store, designed to influence your customers' behavior, without a doubt. When you carefully consider the design and the layout, the spatial arrangements, married with the colors we just talked about, you can create happier customers and drive more traffic and ultimately make that cash register ring even more. Before your customers even get in your store, they're forming that impression, right? We talked about that 8 seconds to form that first impression, 90 seconds to have a subconscious judgment about the place. And so the outside of your store is important. We'll talk a little bit more about windows later, but appearance matters. And so pay attention, sweep that stoop and make sure your windows are clean and the trash can isn't overflowing out front. Those are all things that we get so busy we sometimes forget about. Customer behavior as it relates to store layout is the patterns in which a customer navigates your store, the way they interact with product displays, the way they search your online listings. It's scientific a lot of times and based in psychology. So it's, emotional, right, as well as psychological, and that all results in data-driven numbers that we know. And so it is scientific. 9% of Americans, and I will say this because I'll tell you why in a minute, but 90% of North Americans generally follow the same pattern when they enter a store. I don't know if y'all can guess what that is. It's right. We have an instinct to turn right. In North America, it's that way because we drive probably on the right side of the road. Because the right lane traffic has the right of way, right? That's just how our society has been. And so it's instinctively we turn right. And so we can dictate and change consumer behavior based on how we set up our stores. A couple of types of retail layouts. There's actually many more than this, but I wanted to kind of just go over the basics because there are several that are suited better to particular types of stores because they produce different kinds of behaviors. A grid store layout, which you see at Home Depot and all of your grocery stores. Also, I think people call it a straight floor plan. It's just that, it's straightforward. It's a grid, right? The way we used to design our cities and our street systems. And so it's that repetitive pattern, right? With parallel lines or shelves. It works best in, like I said, groceries, big box stores, but stores have different categories of things. So if you're a small Main Street merchant and you are just a local small grocery store, a grid layout would work great for you because you've got a variety of products, right? They're very easy for customers to navigate, even though I know we all complain when they move things around, right? In the grocery store, I know everybody that my whole life is always, oh my gosh, they moved everything around at Berkshire Brothers or Walmart because we instinctively remember those patterns. And so when the patterns change, we react to those, right? But typically they're very easy to navigate. I know when you go into like a Walmart in a town you've never been in, you instinctively almost, sometimes you can't, but you sort of know where your sections are going to be, right? And that's all because it's based on that grid layout. There are another type of layout is called a forced layout or a loop layout or a racetrack layout. And that is basically where we guide the consumer through our store. And so the consumer is not left with a lot of choices, right? Because we are literally setting up our layout and our floor print the way that we want our consumers to experience it. IKEA is the best example of this. And y'all, I've never been into IKEA. I probably need to do that since I'm using this as an example, but you go through every single department, right? And you see the same people. I've talked to friends about it when you're walking through IKEA, and that's because it's that forced loop layout. And so unless you're just a really fast shopper or they're a really slow shopper, you're going to see the same people over and over again because they're forcing you along the same path. And then a free flow style layout is really the favorite with luxury or upscale boutiques or retailers. You have to have a pretty good floor plan to be able to do this, but it leaves you a lot of opportunities to be creative, to switch things up, to create sort of vignettes and special focus areas or to draw attention to particular walls. And so this is really the most common layout that you see in Main Street, USA. You can do a power wall, which is like, wow, when you walk in, it's what a power wall is, right? It's one centrally focused wall that has products displayed on it that really draw your attention. Those products should typically be what your business needs to sell the most or what your specialty items are, whatever that may be. That can be a power wall. And one more type of layout we're going to talk about is a herringbone layout. And those we see a lot also in Main Street USA. It's those small, narrow spaces. You walk in, you may see the counter kind of right in the middle of the store, but the product displays typically go, long ways, and then they're going to go vertical up. I cannot underestimate and tell you guys how important it is to go up. Vertical space is so important. And you need to be able to get to it if you're putting products up there. But it doesn't always have to be products. You can put signage and other things up high, and we'll talk more about height and layering, but that herringbone is really the visually that goes up and kind of is in a herringbone shape. So that's sort of the layouts. We did colors, we did layouts. Now I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, some miscellaneous items that I think are important for us to talk about. The first is the decompression zone. That's actually what it's called. In some circles, it is called the butt touch because The decompression zone is typically the first 10 to 15 feet of space when you enter somewhere. And then you don't want to have anything too close in that area that it's going to touch a shopper any part of their body. Have you ever been to a store when you're walking through the clothing racks and your hiney touches something? That's the butt touch. You need to make sure you have enough space set up in your store that the customers aren't unintentionally touching something like that, because it's just human nature. We don't want to touch things we don't know, generally speaking. And so there have been studies, people will leave a store. If they brush up against something accidentally, it kind of catches you off guard, right? That is so especially important in this decompression zone. When you're walking in a shopping mall or an outlet center or a strip center, and you are parking and you're dealing with all the activity in the kiosks and the food court or whatever it may be, or all the things outside on Main Street, when you go into that store, you really have to decompress a little bit, and you need to be able to take in what you visually see in that store. And so that's why it's called decompression zone. But make sure it's cleared out, right? I wouldn't put a ton of merchandise in that first 10 to 15 feet, because you got to let your customer get their bearings. They're trying to make assessments that first 90 seconds, remember, as to how high end or low end your products are. What is your brand story? What can they get while they're in there? And so you do want to show them some things, right? You don't want to leave them confused, but you really need it to be not overwhelming and have enough space that they can physically and mentally enjoy that decompression zone and decompress, so they can really focus on what you have to offer. And so this is more about, this is a bad example, obviously, you guys can see that, but the butt brush effect is a real thing. Clutter is just not attractive to folks. I know we have to unpack inventory and reset our stores, and we don't all have the luxury of doing that when we're closed. Sometimes we have to do that, in and around shoppers, but clean up the mess. Make sure that, your trash is put up when you're unpacking UPS boxes. Try to get them out of the boxes as quickly as possible and just have the items there. Whatever you need to do to make sure that things are clean and tidy and uncluttered. Y'all have all been to the antique store you can't walk around in, right? It just makes me nauseous and claustrophobic. I have to get out of there immediately. So spaces, when you're doing retail displays in your retail space, or business, promotion displays in your lobby of your business, which you can do, always show your most popular products first. And then you can actually surround those popular products with less popular products to bolster additional sales. If you are known for urns, right? Urns are our thing. So when you walk in, you pass that compression zone, let's focus on the urns, but then we're going to throw in some of our floral decor. May not typically sell that much, but let's decorate and kind of put these items together and cross promote the products, but really focus on your bread and butter, right? That's what we got to do. Also know that customers don't react to impulse buys on products they need, right? If we need it, we're going to get it. But impulse purchasing is based on desires and things we want or things we didn't know we need. Things that may look good in our next garage sale, mind you, is what my dad used to tell me. But for that reason, I encourage you to put any utilitarian items that you may be selling farther back in your store, and have them walk through the things that they may not necessarily need. And so your flashier products, the ones that are more of a luxury, the ones that are not necessarily luxury in price, but just items that we may not need, should go up front. Because only half of all purchases made in store are planned, right? And so we have to give them room and time and an area to find the unplanned purchases. Okay. And so if you put all of those unplanned purchase items in the back of the store and have your tools and your knives right up front at the hardware store, you're just going to sell the tools and the knives. They're never going to go see anything else, which is why when you walk into a hardware store, all of the kind of non-hardware store items are typically up front or on the aisles, right? The cleaning supplies, the holiday decor, because the utilitarian items, the screws, the wood, those are back in the back because they're going to come get them no matter what. And so that's a good way to increase your sales. This is what I believe is a poor window display, and there are a lot of them. you can see down in the corner, you know, I don't even know what that is behind this plant, but it looks like it's dying. And it just seems busy to me, right? Back in the day, at the turn of the century, window displays were everything. I mean, that is what stores did. That was their form of social media, right? And their marketing and their advertising. And I think that we have let that go a lot. Your window displays are critically important to bring people into your store. They need to say, whether it be through your store name or your signage on the window or the products in the window, who you are and what you sell or what you do. Um, because if we can't tell, we may not be inclined to go in there. They also need to be updated regularly. I know a lot of us struggle with products that don't damage in the sun. And so, depending on where your windows sit, depends on what type of products you can put in there. But um, you know, heights and live window displays are cool. And I'm not saying you need to hire someone to sit in there, but what type of movement and flow can you incorporate into your window? Those are each very important. But your windows tell a story into your store. So, you know, I say the windows are the soul of retail stores. They show a glimpse as to what's inside. What kind of treasures can you get? And so it's really also based on your market. If you're high-end retail store, you want to think luxury when you're designing it. If you're a jeweler, you want to think about jewelry. And so it's very dependent on who you are, what your window size are, how easy is it to access, but make sure you're utilizing them and keeping them fresh and updated. Contrasting heights, and I put several pictures here. The middle two is a display that I did at a friend's store. They were moving in a ton of furniture and they didn't have space for it. And I was like, what if we stack these dressers? And everybody looked at me like I was crazy, but it just looks phenomenal. But contrasting heights and depths grab interest. It helps shoppers interact with your products. If you have tables, you can fan items out. You know what I mean? Keep in mind how tall your customers are. You know, women, if your market is female, the average female adult is maybe 5'5", 5'6". But I think the average male adult's like closer to 6 foot. And so your height varies, right? But pedestals, risers, wooden boxes, anything. And you can see this over here. This is a little a fake staircase, I guess. And then, you know, she's got shoes going all the way up it. I love open drawers with products in them, right? I think that is great. It shows height and variety and it keeps the eye moving throughout your store. Baskets on the floor and fill them with items that are easy to sort through will give you more display space, right? Lights that hang from the ceiling, I think, in varying heights add so much contrast and so much different interest for the shoppers in your store. And so I also encourage people to hang things other than lights from the ceiling. I've seen stores hang hats and all kinds of things. I have a friend that did a store with just different portraits hanging down, wall art, right? Just, you know, with a hook and little clip, and you can just grab one up from the ceiling. So it really helps draw your attention up when you stagger different things at different heights and different depths, right? And that really keeps the visual interest going. But from the ground up, the eye is designed to wonder. And so use the pyramid principle always. And you don't want to put something big and heavy and boxy up top. You really want to start with your bigger, heavier type items and materials at the bottom and then go up, because that is what our eye is designed to do. Okay. So when you're placing your products, arranging your furniture, make sure you remember that pyramid and that you remember height and depth and do, you know, some quirky varying things in a lot of stores. That's what works. Granted, I understand there are some stores that are neat and orderly and organized, and they would freak out if I came in there and started putting things in weird places, and that's okay. That's just, it is what it is. Signage. I told you guys this was going to be quick because there's still a lot to cover, so I'm going through it quick, but you can just hit rewind and rewatch it if you didn't get notes fast enough. But signs point the way. That's why we have wayfinding signs in most communities. They point the way for the shopper. Shoppers are scanners. They're scanning the room, right? Their eyes are scanning the products, and signage helps them determine what is available. but typically we're looking for changes in the environments that we're in. And so you can not necessarily have to put up a big lighted sign, but you can signal a different area of your store. If you are a clothing store and you have children's and women's and men's, right? You don't necessarily have to put up a sign that says menswear hanging from your ceiling. You can if you want, right? But we can signal the men's area by our choice in colors, by our seating options provided, right? By the type of decor that we use to display our products and our items. And so when I say signs, I want you to think outside of the box. And I'm not just talking about regular signage. I'm talking about signaling the customer in a variety of ways. Okay. So also you need to place signs closest to the point of entry. You know, if you have something that you can't explain through layout or through general signaling of change of environment, signage is important, right? Because you have to guide the shopper. I can't explain it enough, but pay attention to your font and your color. There is nothing worse than a sign I can't read, right? And so if you have a sign with a lot of verbiage, it does not need to be up high, right? It needs to be front and center where we can read it. It needs to be clear because they just can't. Older generation shoppers want very succinct, easy to read signage. They may not like the words, painted in amidst a mural that you see somewhere, right? That you kind of have to focus on. That signage may not appeal to your audience. So know who your audience is when you're planning your signage, okay? Don't be afraid to be bold with it. I like bold signage. Again, it doesn't always work, but with shortening attention spans, because of all the digital devices, bright colors, abstract shapes, or props can help drive attention to your store. I like using non-traditional signage. So letters, of all different shapes and sizes that can make words, I think is very interesting. And so I encourage you to think outside the box and, yes, call your sign shop for most of your signage needs, but there's a lot of things you can sign, little antique blocks, with the old letters from light up signs. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. Make sure your displays for when you're describing something, your signage on your displays, maybe it's your price and the size or whatever it is, should always have a left to right orientation, meaning the picture should appear on the left and the text needs to be on the right, because the shopper's eye delivers more understanding and it absorbs that information more effectively when you do it left to right. It's actually more effort for us to scan the opposite way. I don't know why, but it is. But signage can help your shoppers made aware of promotions and sales, to go to different areas of the store to see new releases. And so they are important, right? But you need to make sure you use them in a way that directs the shopper where you want them to go. And if that's because you have some low inventory you're trying to get rid of because you want to bring in a new product line, sign that over there, get them there, right? Help guide them there. And signage is also great for noting groups of products or themes of products or categories. A cookbook, display at a bookstore, you can put cookbooks. But if I was you, I'd hang a big old fork and a spoon up above it because that signals it to me as well. And so it really just depends on how creative you can get and who your customers are. Always make sure that the signs are as short and to the point as they can be. I understand there are longer messages we need to convey, and we will do that when we have to, but let's make sure that the text is easy to read, but try to keep most signs short and sweet. And not everything needs a sign, folks, either. If signage is important, but just remember, you don't want to walk in somewhere and all you see is signs and you don't see the products and you fail to really experience the space, because you're distracted by so many words and signage. Okay. Cross merchandising. Okay, here's an example of, you can see on the left here, the bar photo. I like weird signage, right? And so this is outside of a Beer Stream trailer out in Round Top, Texas, where they've got the bars, but the price on the beers are actually with these old signs. And so, I can go get one of those little wine things for $5. $3 anyways. So that it's an interesting signage, but it's also cross merchandising, because those are all things that the antique venue sells in addition to the beer at their beer stream, right? And we've got the t-shirt. Grouping items and cross merchandising things that belong together, showing the shopper how they can experience or consume products, is very important. And so I love little vignettes and putting different items together that may live in different sections of your store, but by placing them together in a prominent display area, it really elicits creativity, and gets the shopper's mind thinking about how they can use these products in their own lives. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, I had never thought of putting those two things together. And so it's our job, as retailers and store owners and business owners, to put the groupings together and really let their imagination take wind. And you can group by a number of categories. Color. I'm sure you guys all been to Charming Charlie's, right? So color, but also price, size, type, scheme, theme, seasonal. I mean, the list goes on. And so depending on what products you have, what time of the year it is, you can really let your imagination run wild as well in these different product groupings. And this is not innovative or new. It's just something that I think that we forget, but it always proves very successful because it shows the customer instead of telling the customer. So it's not signage telling them, but showing them what these products can do in their own lives, right? And there are a lot of experts that recommend groups of 3 when shopping and grouping and merchandising things together. The human mind can only take so much. I think right now 2 is probably enough of anything. But generally speaking, in a non-pandemic, 3 is kind of your number. If you group more than 3 things together, sometimes shoppers get overwhelmed. And so when you're arranging items, think of things in groups of 3 to create the balance and symmetry, but also to not overwhelm the shopper. Okay. And visual merchandising, what we've been talking about is all about the aesthetics. We talked about layout and the space and the color and grouping and signage. But we've not yet talked about engaging with the other senses. And so how do customers feel when they walk into your store? You can control what they see, but you can also provide them ways to experience your store through touch, through smell. And so there's a lot of different ways to do that. And we'll go into a couple of specifics, but think about it. Think about the site. That's most important. We talked about that large percentage, right? The visual cues, the color, the balance, the path. But touch in-store consumers have the ability to touch and feel textures. And so make sure items that look fun to touch, you know what I'm talking about, are not put out of arm's reach, right? Have the things that should be felt and touched that have a smooth, luxurious feel or aren't what they seem. Leave those down close where people can actually touch and feel them. Smell is strongly associated with memory. And so while it accounted for a very small percentage of what determines shopping, it can help evoke memories of childhood experiences or things that they used to buy. And so think about that. You don't want overpowering smells. There are a lot of people that are sensitive to different odors, and so you have to be careful. But scent is very important and can really, when done right, actually make a big impact on consumer behavior. It's just you don't have as great a chance to impact as many folks as once, but those that you do impact, the chances of them spending more money is much higher. There's scent engineers. Who would have thought? I mean, you can get jobs doing anything, but taste is not for every type of business or store, but restaurants, grocery stores, free samples. Who loves to go Sam's on free sample day? I do, right? That's so important. People want to be able to taste the drink or the product. When you go to the ice cream shop and I can get a scoop and taste which one I want first. If you're able to do that, I encourage you to do so if your products lend itself to it. Generally speaking, shoppers and brains enjoy touching round, soft items. No idea why. But make sure those are placed at eye level, and that you have different merchandising displays and you consider touch. If something is within reach, it should try to be something that would be enticing to touch, or something that helps the shopper use their imagination when they touch it and can actually see that item in use. Okay. Um, your shelving matters, your display cases matter. Wood gives the impression of real, authentic, and organic. Okay. Um, but sometimes shoppers may think that the price point is too high if it's displayed on natural wood shelves. And so, you know, every type of texture um, has a different reaction to the human brain based on their experiences with it, but you know, how it feels to touch and what it, and if it has a scent. You know, you walk in some stores, you can smell the oak or the pine. And so all of those things play into what you're doing. This is actually an example from Little Smithville, Texas, where I'm from, and the chamber is hosting us today. But today's day and age, if you are not considering, and I know I'm not a millennial, but it's the way past the millennials. It's not only the millennials; it's the Generation Z, and even folks in Gen X. They all want an Instagrammable moment, whether they're posting it to Instagram or not. Okay, so don't let that term Instagrammable moment veer you away. Okay, because it's a photo op. And so if they're shopping with their friends or family, it's an experience for them to take a photo. If they are visiting a town far away, they want to send photos back home, right? And so whether they're using Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is, creating vignettes and areas in your store where people can, take photos and tag your business is so super important. This is a new apothecary, Indigo Smithville, that opened up a few months ago, and I love this design she did out front of her store. And I meant to look when I was there to double check it. I had taken this photo a while ago. But one thing that is not here that I think she needs to consider, and it may be there somewhere that I can't see, is adding the store's name or hashtag. Especially since this is outside and people can use it 24 hours a day. And so they may not realize that they're at Indigo Smithville, but that's a great set of windows back there. And so just, even hand painting it, hashtag Indigo Smithville on there would really help the Instagram folks of the world understand that they should use that hashtag and make sure they tag them while they're at your store. If the Instagram moments are inside, you may be taking the photo for them. And, I don't work retail a lot, but I do help some friends out sometimes because I have fun doing it. I always offer to take a group's picture. If they're trying on something crazy, some glasses, or just look like they're having fun, or you can tell they haven't been together in a long time, they're a reunion of friends or family or whatever it is, always offer to take their picture. I know that's nothing to do with retail design, but it is about designing the experience, because that's something that will end up on social media and will help spread the message about your store and all of those things. And that hot bread in a grocery store, I just saw in the comments. Yes, I mean, I love nothing more. Y'all remember the Wonder Bread stores and the Mrs. Baird's? I don't even know if they have them anymore, but when I was little and we'd go on a trip somewhere, you could, stop on the side of the highway and it was just the bread store. Oh my gosh, that smell is so amazing. Unless you run a vintage shop, walking into an outdated store is unacceptable. Unless you want outdated sales. And so what the customer sees, feels, hear, and touch, like we talked about, is their direct perception. And so make sure you're refreshing your displays. We talked about in the windows, right? But you need to be rotating your product lines, okay? You need to be dusting your store. And these are very simple and basic instructions, but they're things that we get so busy we forget about, right? Make sure that on January 1st, you have time scheduled, if it's not already done, to take down your Christmas displays. Same goes with all of our holidays and themes, because you need to stay current and fresh. And so you don't have to change things night and day. You don't have to reorganize. If you have a huge line of dinnerware, right? You don't have to necessarily reorganize the dinnerware, but seasonally, you could change some of the accessory products you use to help pique interest and draw attention over there, right? So we could put little pumpkins on the table in the fall, and we can do some red, white, and blue candles in the summer. And so you don't have to rearrange everything, but make sure you are keeping things relevant and timely, and fresh and updated. And, and I'm not knocking vintage stores, because a lot of times vintage stores are more cutting edge, and they may have older products, but the design is done in a way that you don't think you're, dated or tired at all when you're in that store. And so I have to put that in here for folks to remember to update your displays, update your layouts, get feedback. If you do one layout or one display and it's not working and nothing is selling from that item, or customers are never going back to a certain part of the store, switch it up. Because when you update your displays and your store layouts regularly, you're going to give frequent shoppers a new experience, right? But you'll also be testing your market. You may have a sweet spot, is what they like to call it. It's just for whatever reason it is, based on the layout and the design, it's a spot where no matter what you put there, it sells. Well, so you're going to want to rotate that regularly, right? And so keep track of what's selling and from where, and ask feedback from your customers. There's nothing wrong with that. How was your experience? Did you like our new display, or what brought your attention to that item? It's okay to ask these questions so that we know, but just make sure to keep it fresh and changing. And finally, experiences. And we talk about retail experiences all the time. And while we can't have a wine swirl or a private VIP reception in our shop every day of the week, we can try to design in a way that provides experiences. So electronic items, have them in a way they can plug in. I love this. This is a window display that invites the consumer. You can actually come in and sit down, which I thought was cool. But seating areas, free samples, touch and feel. Show off consumption as much as possible. Make it an experience in the design any way you can. And it just depends on what you're selling, right? But just make it experience. And you can do those in little small ways. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a huge event. It can be little small things that you can do so people can actually experience your space, your business, your store, but also experience the item and the product. Because engineered moments are what it's all about in today's day and age. In closing, happy customers and happy shoppers make happy business owners, right? So what can you do better through design, through creativity, to really make your customers happy? Because in the end, that will hopefully make you happy. And so it's all about human emotion. Do your research. You're welcome to call me. Like I said, we can go lunch and talk colors and retail design anytime you'd like. Yeah, I think that's it. My contact information is here if you guys have any questions, and that Design for Impact, because it really does matter. And April was having technical difficulties earlier today, and maybe
I am back on. Can you see me? Thank you, Sarah. That was fascinating. I love the colors. It was just absolutely as interesting as it could have been.
yeah.
And I am so decorationally challenged, but I intend to immediately begin applying several of those things to my own business that I own on Main Street. I can really see that being important. We tend to stick with dark, neutral colors, but I love all of your really bright, beautiful. I mean, I run an entertainment space, but I can still see how people would really remember the space that was very welcoming and warm as they come in and wait for a show to start. So thank you very much. I really like your presentation.
You're so welcome. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yes, ma'am. And I want to remind those of you that are watching this class that Sarah has said that she would be very happy to be available to answer questions. Just reach out to her. Her contact information was on the screen right before I popped back in. So you can just rewind and see that, or always, of course, just feel free to reach out to the chamber and we can connect you. This class, as well as several other classes, some of which were offered by Sarah, are all available on our smithvilletx.org website, as well as on our Facebook page, Smithville Area Chamber of Commerce, and on the Smithville Public Library page. And with that, we will end our presentation. Thank you again, Sarah.
Thank you.